When I say I'm from California, people almost always think of Los Angeles, or maybe San Francisco, but rarely ever do they think of Sacramento, even though that's the capital of the state. I personally never actually lived there, but I did live nearby, and some of my friends and family currently live there right now. That's why, after nearly a year of traveling around South and Southeast Asia, Julie and I decided to stop off for a quick visit before continuing on our world journey.
We had a great time there. Our friend brought us to the Lake Tahoe. We could see the snow and the beautiful lake, and I could experience my first Thanksgiving in America. I could spend a great time with Trevor's family.
But as with every place we visit, and especially here since it's one place we might live in the future, we decided to dive a little bit deeper into the history to learn more about why this city, which is often overlooked, is actually really interesting and beautiful. Sacramento was named by Spanish explorer Gabriel Moroga, who arrived in the area in 1808. However, the city wasn't really founded until about 3 decades later, when John Sutter, a Swiss-born Mexican citizen, was granted 50,000 acres to begin a new colony here in the Central Valley, and he established Sutter's Fort and the colony around it. The original adobe structures were built over a period of a few years, mostly by Native American laborers, either here from the area or a few Native Hawaiians that John Sutter had brought over from the then Kingdom of Hawaii. At first, this system seemed pretty successful, and Sutter started to expand his empire here in the Central Valley, including the purchase of Fort Ross and its surrounding area in 1841 from the Russian Empire, which, if you want to learn more about, you can see in our last video, and the establishment of Sutter's Mill further up the river, where he would log timber and then ship it downstream here to Sutter's Fort. But while establishing the mill at Sutter's Mill, something would happen that would change the history of California and the world forever. In 1848, gold was discovered at Sutter's Mill by a man named James Marshall, who brought that piece here to Sutter to inform him of his discovery. The discovery was made in January, but by the summer of that year, news had already spread far and wide, bringing people from all over the world to settle in the Central Valley. This boom in population turned out to be a disaster for Sutter and his new empire, with people squatting on unwatched land and stealing goods and materials from all over his colony. The location here would continue to be extremely important, but Sutter's Fort itself would become abandoned by 1850. The real activity and heart of Sacramento as a new city would move much closer to the water. Sacramento was actually established right here at the conflux between the American and Sacramento rivers. They're right behind me, both of them, and when they join up at this point, they become the Sacramento River, going all the way out into the bay. This made Sacramento the perfect place to ship things, materials, or agricultural products from the inland here in the valley, all the way out to San Francisco Bay, and from there, it could go almost anywhere in the world at that point. This feature, especially during the height of the gold rush in 1849, made Sacramento incredibly important for the health and wealth of the newly formed state. So, after years of deliberation, they eventually decided to make Sacramento the official capital of California. Construction on the Capitol building itself behind me wouldn't start until 1860, and they used a local courthouse in the interim period. But during construction, they ran into some other much bigger issues. Sacramento's location right next to this massive river would also put it in tremendous danger. The city faced severe flooding as early as 1850, just a few years into its development. But nothing could really prepare the city for what happened just a decade later. Record levels of rain and snow throughout the west coast of North America, followed by a relatively warm period just afterwards, brought tremendous amounts of flooding all through the area. In Sacramento, this resulted in the river rising 10 feet in just 24 hours, totaling 22 feet above the minimum water line. The flooding lasted nearly 3 months, and most of the city was left completely submerged, with people traveling by rowboat or kayak from building to building. Now, actually, today, the water level is pretty high, and with the amount of water flowing through here, you can get a sense of the scale that Sacramento City would have faced during a larger flood. This is just a few days of rain that we've been experiencing, not even that heavy, and it's got a lot of force and mass behind it. Damage to the city was devastating, and most buildings needed to be rebuilt. or lifted up an entire story. In some areas, like Old Sacramento, you can still see clear evidence of this, including some buildings where what once was the first floor is now completely underground. Even in spite of this giant catastrophe, the city remained incredibly successful, and it has continued to grow and develop over the last century and a half. So, even though Sacramento is only the 6th largest city in California today by population, it's still incredibly important, and honestly, quite beautiful, especially in the fall.
One thing I like about Sacramento is that I don't feel like another big cities. It's because a lot of trees here. And people say here in Sacramento have more tree per capita compared to any other city in US.
Overall, I think Sacramento is a very underrated city. And if you're traveling in California, it's really worth the stop.
Also, thank you Dom and Liz to host us. We had a lot of fun exploring the city with you. And we can't wait to see you guys again. Maybe somewhere else along our journey.
Speaking of which, we've already started traveling again, and we are currently very, very far from Sacramento. But we'll save that for next time. In the meantime, thank you for watching, and
see you at our next destination.
ciao!
Ciao!